I'm joined here today with Keith Williams, currently the president of Newfields here in just outside of Denver, Colorado. Keith, you've been in the industry for a long time. Been with KP early days, and then you started your own company, Smith Williams, which I'm really excited to talk about. You've been all over the globe, including Uzbekistan, as we were just talking about, but we can get more into that. And just excited to chat with you today, Keith, and get some insights as to what you're seeing in the industry, what's working, what's not, and what things look like from your vantage point. So really excited to chat with you. How you doing today?
Good, Jason. Thanks for that introduction too. And I think I've known you now for, I want to say 15 years through a few companies as well. So appreciate this opportunity, and hopefully I can add something valuable for those who are listening. Just a little bit about my background. I grew up in Montana. My dad was a underground miner in Butte. He paid his way through college as an underground miner up there. Told me never to go into mining and don't be a civil engineer, so I didn't follow that very well. I graduated from Montana State in 1990 with a civil engineering degree, and had worked in mining as a summer intern up in Montana on some of the Pegasus properties like Basin Creek and tunnels up there. And anyway, got some mining experience while I was still in university. So when I got out, mining was pretty hot commodity, and had some good opportunities. So yeah, my first job was over in Elko, Nevada, and that was after I got my degree, of course. But backing up to some of my first experiences in mining as an intern up in Montana, there we used to. What I liked about it the most, even as a young person, I think I was in my even right around 20 at the time, but it's fast paced, lots happening. You'd actually get to go see things being built, lots of projects. I'm not a miner, I'm a civil engineer, and we've worked on projects all over, but I'm going to get into that a bit. But yeah, I really liked fast pace. I remember even in 1920, they gave me a road job and said, here's your budget, go fix this road coming into the mine. And that was used at the time, Jason, for me. And when the end of the summer hit, they said, well, hey, we'd like you to stay, and we're going to give you big money. To me at the time, it was like, I think it was 20 plus an hour, and that was big money to me. And
for sure.
Wow, I should stay. And then got to thinking about it, and I went back and finished my degree. So those were the early years, and then got out and went down to Elko. So anyway, and when I got down to Elko, I was just amazed at the size of the projects that were going on. There was Newmont was one of our big clients, Barrick, of course, out there, and massive tailings dams being built from the ground up, also heap leach facilities going up everywhere, lots of process facilities. I remember the refractory ore treatment plant in the early years, and lots of professionals out there, all different disciplines going, out there in Elko, and it's just crazy times. I mean, you couldn't find a place to live, and lived in a little back apartment in a house for a while until we actually took a house or rented a house sight unseen. Heard about it before it was on the market, got in there, and those were my early years in Elko. So and then that spent good 3-4 years in the early years out in Elko working with Knight Piesel at the time, and during that time period, during the field season, we'd be out on the projects all through the construction season. Then when the snow hit, we'd usually get to go back to the office and work on designs and things like that. But it's a great experience. And Newmont at the time was a fairly small company, and then they went international, and they wanted, of course, to take the technology with them and the people with experience. So that's kind of how we ended up in Uzbekistan in the first place. Was they ended up in a joint venture over with the Uzbek government after Perestroika, after the breakup of the Soviet Union, and they ended up on this project investing, and it was World Bank financed, and of course they wanted some of the expertise to go with them. And I remember I was pretty young then. I was, mid-20s or so. And the first guy that went out to that site goes out to the site, and he looked at it. He was over there for 3 weeks, and he came back and quit. I'm not going there. And he was married and had a lot of reasons why he couldn't do that. But I was next in line as a young engineer, and I said, well, where is that? So I pull out my world maps and start looking at things and put my hand up to go. And sure enough, I ended up over there in 94 and, got over there and of course it was just a whole new world for everybody over there. Just crazy times. Some of my best stories of my life come from that time period. Again, young and impressionable. We were up against a very challenging project, lots of things to do. And like when we first moved into the town of Zarafshan, I have to talk about Zarafshan just briefly because in Soviet times, what's that?
I said, please. Yeah, no, I'd
so Zarafshan, you have to put your cap back on the Soviet times. So gold mining was considered top secret in Soviet times. This town didn't really exist on maps and things, or because it was top secret. But if you look at the Guinness Book of World Records back in the mid 80s, I think you'll see that the largest gold mine in the world is the Muruntau Pit, which is 35 kilometers from 40 kilometers from Zarafshan. So that's the town we ended up in and supporting this mine. So when we first showed up over there, I was with a group of the first expats that went in there, and the local folks were very curious about us. They'd walk down the street, they'd look at us like we're aliens, from another planet with our Western gear and stuff. And we're living in apartments, and we didn't have, they had no infrastructure yet, no man camp, no anything, and we were just part of the community, and it was really interesting. This was my first impressions of that place, but and then to get the equipment in and all the resources in to do the job. And the job we went to do was to bring Western technology in there. For instance, they had been milling gold, and they had a very high grade deposit out there. So they'd been milling for years, but they'd been, putting this waste rock off to the side, and it was pretty decent grade, like a gram per ton type material. And so the project was to go in and with new technology, which was leaching, and a 4-stage crusher, and to crush this material down and then put it on a heap leach pad, which was new technology over there. So that was our project. And anyway, it's very challenging, and lots of interesting stories from that time period of my life. And over my career, I went in and out of there 4 different times over 13 years. Wow. Okay, so I was in and out of there every time. The initial construction, which was, I want to say, it was like 18 months, and then every time they'd build a new project, we would go back in to assist with the construction and bring our resources in and help. So it's been about 4 years total on the ground over there over a 13-year period, and it was quite an experience. One of the things, some of the things I saw while I was there was, when we first got there, it was mainly Russian technology, Russian folks that were over there working, and then that changed over the time, and the Russians went back to Russia, and the Uzbek folks became more in charge, and more of those folks involved with the project. It almost changed directly, like 90% Russians initially, 10% Uzbeks and Uzbek folks, and then over time that changed to almost exactly the opposite. So it's interesting to see those transitions and the differences in culture while we were over there. Really love the people. I can't say enough about the people out there. They were very accommodating, very warm people. Great to work with. I'd say, I don't know, at the time, in the later years, say 90% of my staff that worked with us were Muslim folks, and we'd stop the shift to accommodate Ramadan and whatever we needed to, and it worked well. We just had to work with the culture and be cognizant of what their needs were too. And we did that, and we were very successful for a lot of years out there. And I was I was disappointed at the end. 2007 came around, and the mine was expatriated, and a lot of reasons for that, politics, and you
Sure.
know, if you kind of follow what happened there. I mean, the U.S. government went into Afghanistan, of course, and lots of things going on in that part of the world, and other factors. But anyway, the mine was expatriated. We received a call. I remember we were commissioning a heap leach, a conveyor system, several different things, pumping systems on a Saturday. Never forget it. And out there commissioning all these systems, and things were going really well. We were proud of the project, so on and so forth. And we got a call that we were all going to leave on a bus that night. So anyway, so we packed up, went back to town, got on a bus about 5 p.m. that evening, and drove all night back to the capital city. And kind of within the next, I'd say, 48 hours, everybody flew out of the country. So that's how we left Uzbekistan, and it was very disappointing to me personally, just because of all the relationships we've built over the years, and it's just a hard stop, and bang, we're out of there, you know. So that was the hardest part about that project for me, was the end. Really enjoyed working over there. So anyway, wanted to highlight that as part of my experience, Jason. So one of the things I was. Go ahead.
Sure. No, I think that's fascinating. I sure know about that project, having been a Newmont guy for a period of time, but heard a lot of stories, not so many from folks that were there firsthand, certainly not those that spent, 4 years boots on the ground like you did. It just makes me think, as a young engineer early in your career, what's the motivating factor to grab your suitcase and backpack and head over to Uzbekistan? A lot different than Montana, I'd have to imagine.
Yeah, I guess I always had the bug to want to go see the world, and my career has afforded me that opportunity. And I tell our young folks, if you're into that type of opportunity, this is a great career path. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go see the world and do it in this industry. I always like to say, like, when I first got out, people said, "Oh, you're an engineer, so you drive trains?" And I said, "No, I don't drive." You're a miner? You got a lot of gold? You got a lot of gold? No, we don't do that either. We do projects. We go in and support projects. And I think about a project, a mining project, similar to what a city. All components have to go into that project. You've got infrastructure. You've got lots of civil. You got electrical, mechanical, all different disciplines. You've got housing. If you're in remote locations, you've got milling. You've got water treatment, you've got process facilities, all kinds of things, and it's an exciting. I mean, it's an exciting opportunity. I don't mean to put it down, but there's a lot of careers where you never get to see things get built. It's not the kind of pace mining is, and the beauty about mining is it repeats. You usually do an initial project, and then you're looking at expansions over time. So that's a good opportunity when you're in a consulting type business. You do a good job, and generally you're going to be there for more of those projects, and going back to, advice to young folks coming in here. I mean, just say yes to opportunities. I think about Uzbekistan for me personally. I mean, I didn't even know where I was at, just like I just said. And it ended up being part of my life and my career. And I'm thankful that I had that opportunity. Don't say you can't go because you got a cat at home or something. I hear a lot of things these days, and you make your world what you want. You want to have a smaller world, that's fine. If you want to, expand and go see the world, the opportunities are there. So anyway, Jason, I think that's part of the advice I'd say about how I got into the mining industry, and what I'd tell younger folks coming in is be open to opportunity.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I know for me personally, as a teenager, I went to Mexico when living in Texas, and having been, a gringo heading to Mexico and just getting a flavor for their lifestyle and the life that people were living really opened my eyes to different cultures in general, and that, that things were different outside of the States, but in a lot of ways, great ways. So I think what you're saying is spot on. Saying yes to an opportunity to go to Uzbekistan or I mean, in today's day and age, up to Canada, down to Peru, Chile, South Africa, Australia, there's so many diverse areas that young folks can go to and older, of course, more experienced, but the opportunities are endless. And I think that's what you're saying as well, is that what a great way to see the world and get paid well, typically too, you know.
That's the truth. That's the truth. And one of the things too in consulting, I've spent a big part of my career as a consulting engineer on the project side. I've been fortunate to be a consultant to the owners, been on owner teams, also been on construction teams, and so I've had a pretty good varied experience. But one of the things that really stands out to me is just the diversity of what we've seen and the diversity of places we've got to see as well. So like you were saying down in Mexico, and got to work down there too. But what I see, one of the things that used to stand out to me a lot, even in Uzbekistan, in the evening, the whole town would get out and walk around, whole families, everybody. And it was quite a community. And I've seen that in Mexico and other places too. I got to tell you, I think we're missing part of that here in the U.S. But the people and how they interacted in things down there. What an eye opener, So yeah, again, like your experience in Mexico, I've seen that around the world in lots of different places, and we have things to learn from them as well, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, I totally agree with you. And those that know me well know that I have a real affinity for Mexico. Have been going down there for 25 years now. Had the opportunity to work there on the down at Penasquito as well with Goldcorp and now Newmont. Quite the operation. I think from a cultural standpoint, though, I'm with you. The culture is in a lot of cases different than what we experience here. There's a lot of time spent with family over food and just hanging out. And I think that is really something that I cherished with my time there, having a 2-hour meal, hanging out with the elders who would sit around the table, and then you got the kids running all over the place, and the middle generations are chasing the kids, and you just have this. It's very vibrant and full of life, and I just think that that's really something special. Maybe the takeaway with that is it's an opportunity to open your mind and broaden your horizons and see things that are different, which I think if you fast forward in your life, you can apply to your life and to your job. And having that vast array of experience, I would assume you say the same thing, has been beneficial for you as a person, but also within your career.
Definitely agree with that. You reminded me of one of the experiences I had up in Kazakhstan in the mid 90s. We went out and looked at several mines around the Balkhash area, which is a big mining district in Kazakhstan, and it's a pretty tough place. I mean, at the time there wasn't a lot out there, and there wasn't a lot of capital around, and people were just. It always amazed me how much they could do with so little. And we're so spoiled here. You need a part, you get on the phone, here comes the part. Well, if you don't have the part, you better get a fab shop going. You better figure out how to make it. If it's a coil, you better rewind it. You get creative to make things work, and that's how those people go. But we're out in the middle of nowhere there, and the mine manager on this mine invited us over for dinner, and I swear there was nothing around this place for miles. And we go over to his place, and he's got the carpet laid out, and we sit on our knees, around the table, a traditional Kazakh dinner. And there was, I don't know, half dozen of us, and the mine manager and a couple of his top deputies, and we all sat around that table. And if you're invited to a Kazakh house, or even in Uzbekistan, if you're invited to their house is yours for the whole evening. And I was just amazed at what they brought out. They brought out their best, and they treated us the best that whole evening while we were there. And it made quite an impression. It's something I never forgot. But just in the middle of nowhere, here it came from everywhere. It was quite an experience. So anyway, share that one with you. No, also, go ahead, Jason.
No, I just said that's great. No, it's great. Keep going.
Yeah, a couple other impressions. I got to travel up to Kupol project up in Siberia, north of Magadan. And I do speak enough Russian to get by. I understand it pretty well. My wife's Russian. And I know all the swear words, of course,
Yeah.
from those are the first ones we all learn.
Yeah.
I know enough to get by. And anyway, so we went out to the Kupol project, and it's the longest trip I ever took. Flew out of Denver here and flew to LAX. First flight, all my luggage gets lost.
Oh,
Okay, I forget a mechanical issue. Go to LAX, and then turn around and fly from LAX all the way back across to the east to over to Moscow, and stop in Moscow. We're there for overnight. Remember, my luggage never shows up, and then fly. I want to say it's 7 or 8 time zones across Russia through Siberia to get over to Magadan. So by the time you get there, you're more than around the world, especially coming from LA and going backwards, and luggage still never showed up. But one of my impressions was in Moscow, I was sitting there having dinner, and I was listening to these folks, and they said, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm going to Magadan, and then I'm going out to the mining project. And they said, Magadan, what'd you do? You know, they all look at you. That's where the gulags were, you know. And I actually have a picture over on my shelf there. It's called the Tower of Tears. Very sad, you know, the history out there. But the Russians just look at you like, holy cow, what did you do wrong? You know, so went out there to Magadan, and some of the impressions, like the folks walking around there look like, you know, like just like they're huge, and then they'll take off 6 layers and they're actually in great shape, and, you know, very, very attractive people. So anyway, I enjoyed that trip quite a bit. And yeah, and the story on my luggage, I never got it till I was on the way back. So I had to actually buy Russian clothes in Magadan, Russia. And like a pair of pants was $200. And I bought one of those big warm hats, and I remember I spent $500 or $600 just getting a few things to, you know, to get by with when I was over there. And once I got to the mine, of course, they had everything up there and helped me out. But yeah, I got my bag on the way back. That was my trip to.
That's crazy.
But that was pretty good.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, Keith. You brought this up earlier. I think we've known each other for 15 years or so. One of the things that I've seen over that time that I find admirable is your ability to create really good culture within your organization, within your team. And I'm just curious if you think any of your philosophies around building a team, putting a team together, building a company, you know, if there's any roots in your trips to that part of the world, and any culture that you brought into designing your organization, designing your team, if there's any correlation there, or anything that you took from that region that you brought forward to building your teams.
Well, I think the biggest thing is just respect, and respect with people you're working with, and giving them opportunity, you know. And that's here, there, that's everywhere.
Sure.
You know, consulting is an interesting business, Jason, because really, you know, we're not selling widgets, we're not selling equipment, we're not, you know, generally we have human resources, you know, technical resources, professional resources that we're selling, and we're selling those to a client based on our expertise. So the only thing we have is clients and people, right, in the consulting industry. And I can't stress that enough. And anytime there's another variable in there, it doesn't seem to work as well. So, yeah. So how do I tie that to personal relationships? Respect with people, give people opportunity, make sure you support the people, get them the tools and things they need to do the job. I mean, it's a pretty simple recipe, Jason, in my opinion, and it's been successful. And you know, I think the other part of that too is a lot of people I've worked with my entire career, and I'm thankful for that. And get each other's back, and that goes a long way too, you know. So, yeah, I mean, having that, it's not just work. It's, you know, it's you care about the family, you care about the people. That means a lot to everybody, in my opinion. So.
No, I share that perspective for sure, Keith. I think one of the things that we say a lot is that people build projects, and you really rely on the relationships that you have with people to get things built. So I know for us, we put an incredible amount of emphasis on the support that we do to our clients on making sure we get the best team, making sure we get the best key personnel, people that want to be on the project, 2, have the experience, 3, what you highlighted, which is anytime somebody's worked with somebody before, that's always a beneficial thing. But I think that what you're highlighting, and I want to emphasize, is take care of the people that take care of you. And if you've got, a good staff and a good team, there's really no stopping you if you guys put your heads together, guys and gals put your heads together. Really nothing you can't tackle if you're willing to collaborate and rely on each other. I see that our industry is less that way, which I think is to our detriment. I personally want to see more emphasis put on teams and people and collaboration. I really see that as the way to get out from underneath some of the scary statistics that we tout out within our industry. But I'd be super curious, Keith, what do you see, or what do you want to see, I guess, heading into the future, talking about mining and capital projects within mining. What would you like to see, 1, and then 2, maybe what are some of the challenges that we need to be aware of so that we can come up with solutions?
I think to add on to what you said, one of the things I'd like to see change is there's definitely been a trend to make, I almost want to say, to get rid of relationships from supply chains and things like that. And when I was asked, what would I like to see change, I actually focused on that, and it's interesting you brought it up. But my best assignments in my career have been when I've been part of the team and recognized as being part of the team. Sure. And I had to sit in boardrooms with executives and things and be part of the team, and that means a lot. I mean, that's you're vested in each other. And you know what, one of the things I'd highlight too, I mean, you're going to make mistakes. There's going to be things happen. And whoever thinks there's things that these projects go without mistakes and this or that, you're wrong. They are going to happen. So the real thing is, how do you react to those mistakes? How do you come back in, and how do you fix those things? And are you going to shy away? Are you going to put your head in the sand? You're going to take it head on and go fix the issue, because they do happen. So I'd highlight that. But going back to, a peeve lately is, it's really, I mean, being viewed as a commodity with your consulting services. We'll get these RFPs, and they'll come straight out of supply chain, and really they're very poorly written. They're like we're a construction company, and all the terms and conditions are written as if we're doing construction. Well, we're not. We're doing consulting services, right? Sure. And a lot of the terms and conditions don't even apply. So whoever is sending that doesn't even really understand the services we provide in the first place, right? So it's kind of, after 30 years of looking at these, you get it and you kind of look at it and you go, do they even care? Do they care that what we do? I mean, if we do our job well, I'd submit that we should save our fees, at least with some creative engineering. If we can come up with ideas we've seen in the past and bring that experience in from various places around the world, various projects where we've seen it done wrong and done right, and we can bring that experience in, we should more than pay for our consulting fees. I mean, I have to put it in perspective. Jason, you can help me with this, but I'd say in general, our fees are maybe 5% of the project overall, and that's engineering and site representation. The engineering itself is maybe 1% to 2%. So you're 1% to 2% of the project, and yet you're being put up against a bid that isn't really an apples to apples bid. That's one of my pieces. I'd really like to see, are the people that are being proposed, are they equal with experience? It's not just, they're cheaper and they can just do the same commodity thing. That's actually one of my peeves. Jason,
no, you're speaking my language, Keith. I absolutely appreciate what you're saying, and it hits close to home for me, being in the commercial space predominantly. A lot of times we get lumped into to the bucket of individuals that are chasing, quote unquote, cost savings. And it's it's frustrating, to say the least, when the objective is to, beat up a contractor to save 5% off their fee or 10% off their fee. There's a mentality that I see within the industry that, contractors are making tons of money off the backs of mining companies. But if you go look at the financials, it's not the case. And it's unfortunate that that's the perception, and it's unfortunate that that's the focus. I think for me, it goes back to what we were talking about before, and it's people and it's relationships, and things go wrong. So when something goes wrong, I want to know that I could rely on the person to my left and to my right to help me fix it and get it right. That's where the focus should be, in my opinion, not Newfields is making X dollars and we want them to make 0.5X. It's focused on price and not focused on value. And I think it's
you reminded me of something with that conversation there, Jason, that I've heard this many times in my career, that, okay, we'll go to, let's say we got a proposal or an RFP to supply somebody, and our proposal includes a multiplier, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to be, again, all we do is supply professionals, technical experts. So our multiplier accounts for all of our overheads, our office spaces, everything else, our overheads, our legal, our payroll, benefits, so on and so forth, the person's salary, so on and so forth. So after that, there's a profit margin, and and then you'll hear somebody on the other side say, "Oh no, I can hire that guy for 50." Let's say the guy's salary is 50,000 a year or 100,000. I can hire that guy for 50,000 a year. That's all it's going to cost us. And I wished I could start up consulting to figure out mining company multipliers, because I guarantee they're higher than ours. Because anyway, we have to run pretty lean with our overheads to be competitive, right? No, so the only difference really is our profit margin between what it would cost them to hire that person or us to hire that person. And again, I would submit that the multipliers on the other side are significantly higher. So anyway, just wanted to point that out.
I can attest to that. I can attest to that. I mean, one of the things that we do for our clients is roll up our sleeves and look at what's in the multiplier, not because we're trying to, take profit or take margin or recovery away from a contractor, but you want to know what you're paying for on a cost reimbursable basis, which is fair. But I have a good sense of what contractor multipliers look like from a burden standpoint, from an overhead standpoint, also ODCs. I also have been part of organizations within a mining company where we charge back our services to mining projects. So from a corporate standpoint, you're charging back to a mine in wherever, Australia, Canada, whatever. And overheads for mining companies, in my experience, are higher than what the contractors operate on. And I think that's important to highlight, because I think that I think as an industry, holistically, we're overly punitive on contractors making a good profit. And what we always say is we want the contractors that we work with to make market profit and then a little bit better. And why is that? It's because we want them to want to work for us, and we want to be the client of choice. And we know that extra little nudge on the top of what a contractor wants to make is, and what they can make in the market, brings the right kind of behavior to the table. If a job is sold and you getting half the profit that you want, you're not going to put your best people on it. You're not going to put your best foot forward. It's just human behavior. I don't know. What do you think about that, Keith?
Couldn't agree more. And then you touched on it before too about the team. If I was on the owner's side, and again have been on the owner's side at different times, but I would want the team that I think could do the job the best. And a lot of times that's not one company, maybe it's multiple companies, but you put together the team that you want to execute the work. And I think that means, that means a lot too. You touched on that. As far as the cost, I hope others think more like you, Jason. That would be helpful. The other one that drives me crazy is just some of these bid documents. Again, the apples to apples comparison. If you leave it open to consultants and you say, hey, here's the scope, go figure it out. You're going to get everything from, A to Z on how it's going to be done, so on and so forth. If you want a real apples to apples comparison, you better have very good definition. In fact, I'd even suggest you say how many hours and you say how many categories so that you do get a true comparison, and strive to have it an apples to apples comparison. So I know we spend a lot of time on proposals and certainly would appreciate that. So
well, I think we spent a couple minutes on it, but I think for good reason, because I think it's pervasive across the industry that contractors are viewed as negative and in a negative light, and that they shouldn't make money. I mean, you've got gold at all-time highs, and gold mining companies are making record profits. Why then on the flip side of the coin beat up a contractor to reduce their margin down to something that's not really sustainable? And that's the issue for me. Is if you look back in history and you look at the good contractors, they had training programs, they were developing people, they had number twos so that you could carry someone forward in the industry that could learn from people with experience. And now, as what I see, in my opinion, is you've got mining companies that have really squeezed that out. So if you look at what consulting firms can do, EPCM firms, the firms that support the mining industry, they don't have those training programs anymore. They can't afford it. And where I get frustrated is, well, now we're in this market where we don't have enough good, high quality, high caliber individuals to perform the work, and we're upset about it. But as mining companies, I think we've pushed that out. Not trying to beat up on them, but I think it's just the reality and the circumstance that we're faced with now. I personally would love to see, some of those high potential programs put back in place, training programs, bring people up, and I just don't see enough of it. And I'd sure like to see more.
I know from a consulting standpoint, Jason, we really have to think about that within our ranks, right? So we are continuously bringing in entry level folks, and then we have the different staff categories through, but it's super important to be bringing in new folks all the time, and then our middle engineers, our higher senior engineers, but it's a continuous process of improving and keeping those resources coming in. So I think that's been healthy for us, and it'd be healthy for the industry, is all I'm saying. And as well as I do, anytime there's a downturn, bam, they're gone, and there's, and they don't come back. That's been my experience. A lot of them, they go through those experiences and they don't come back. So then you end up with gaps in experience as well. Good times, bad times. And like you say right now, I mean, we're on a wave with metal prices. There's more work out there than we can do, to tell you the truth, and not enough resources in our ranks as well. So yeah, we certainly see that too.
I think that's a global challenge, Keith, with everywhere I work: South America, Africa, Australia, North America. It's just tough to find good quality talent, and nobody has a bench of 100 people just hanging around. You can't afford to do that as a contractor anymore. And frankly, the owners' staff and their team have been whittled down as well. It's one of the things that I don't understand. If you look at a major mining company, roughly 50% of the cash that they spend year over year is on projects. Yet most majors don't have even so much as a project team within the corporate ranks, and they struggle to put high quality, high caliber people into projects around the world. It just blows my mind that so little emphasis is put on the capital development space. It's crazy.
Well, and one of the things I say there, I've been in the industry long enough. I've got to see the trends go multiple times. So I have seen where owners develop super great, great teams and very well qualified teams, and then something changes or the directives change and they get rid of those, and then then it goes a different way, and then they'll want to develop again in the future. So we see it over and over. But the second time, you've basically got to start from ground zero again. So you don't have that consistency and some of the things that I think would definitely be a better situation for sure.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I was talking through that with one of my clients, and we just started kind of scratching the numbers of what it would look like to put a centralized core project team in place from a corporate standpoint that could then support the various regions and the various projects. And we started looking at the numbers, and it was like, my gosh, we can justify this in about 6 months. The value that you could provide in 6 months would pay the salary for a team for 10 years, maybe even more. If you look at at what experience can bring to bear on a project, like you said, oh, don't do that. We can't put that there. Let's move that. So you don't end up picking up your process facility and moving it off the ore body because you didn't do enough geotech or whatever. It's a challenge for us for sure as an industry, no question.
Yeah. So as far as changes in the industry, that's definitely one I'd like to see. And just to revisit again, relationships. To me, relationships are super important. We've got all this electronic stuff. We've just been through a pandemic where people are all remote. I can't wait till we're back to face to face. That means a lot to me personally. Call me old school or whatever, but I do believe in relationships. And I believe the best projects, again, are when the owner is vested in the consultant and the consultant is vested in the owner. And I'll take that to the contractors as well, the project team. If you're vested together, those are where I've seen the best success over my career.
Yeah, no, I think you and I are from the same train of thought there, Keith. There's no question. Certainly, I know for us, we're advising our clients to put more and more emphasis every day on developing those relationships, building the team at all levels of the organization. It's not just at an executive level or at a project team level or at a worker bee level. It's getting that stitching up and down the organization. So it's not the first time you have a problem with the contractor, it's the first time the CEO and the CEO have met. You want there to be a relationship there far before there's problems. Just makes it a lot easier if you've got that relationship to say, oh, I know you, you know me, let's jump in this together and figure it out, rather than we've never talked before and you're saying I'm the problem, but I think you're the problem. It just it doesn't go over well.
Well, part of relationships are trust, right? And trust is a big part. So
totally agree.
Keep that trust, So anyway, one of the questions I had to bring into this was, have I seen a crazy situation I'd like to share, Jason?
Yeah, sure. What's interesting? Go ahead.
I actually have to get up energy to tell this story, and I do it probably better when I'm drinking. So when I was over in Uzbekistan on the initial project, we had to bring in, we brought in Western equipment. We had cat scrapers and dozers and everything else. And anyway, scrapers they hadn't done much with scrapers over there, to say the least. And there was trainers brought in from the UK to help us train them. And we had Ames Construction out there brought in some of their high end, or some of their very experienced operator trainers to help us get the equipment going. And anyway, we had this guy named Ivan, and he was, when you looked at the guy, he was like 6'5", big old guy, and he had a lot of different gold teeth and things. He kind of reminded me of 007 Jaws, if you can picture that movie. It's an old movie, but
yeah, sure.
Kind of reminded me of Jaws from 007, but just the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. Very accommodating, very, very humble. And the one day I get a call on the radio, because the radio, it's that's our form of communications before cell phones, all that. In fact, when we were there, we had one satellite phone for the entire project, and we'd get 10 minutes a week to speak on that satellite phone. So just to put it in perspective of the times. But anyway, so we I get this call on the radio, and it's Keith, problema. So I get in my truck and drive down to the end of the leach pad, and I get down there and I'm looking off the embankment on the leach pad, and there's this scraper and it's jackknifed into itself. I look up and there's Ivan in the cab, and he's like over the steering wheel. I thought, oh my gosh, he's died or something, had a heart attack or something bad. And I knew enough about a scraper to get up there and put the can down and turn it off and get it locked out and check his pulse, and he's got a pulse and everything, and call the safety guy, old Buck. And I'm, Buck, we got an issue down here. Come down and look at this deal. And so Buck comes down in his truck, and we're looking at him, and this scraper's good 8+ feet in the air, 3 meters in the air. And we got to get this big guy out of there. So it's my translator, myself, Buck, and Buck had a translator too, like 4 of us. So we get this big old guy, and we kind of get him out of the scraper, and we get him down to the ground, and we get him loaded up in Buck's truck, and he's going to head up to the the medics and see what's going on and things like that. So we get him loaded up, and I think it's the end of the story, So there goes Buck off in the truck, or Buck and Ivan in the truck up to the front gate, and kind of start back to work and driving along, and I hear this radio chatter start. Oh my God, Ivan woke up. He woke up. He jumped out of the truck. And the truck was doing about 35, 40 clicks down the road, and he just rolls down the road and gets up. First thing he does is go into a container, and he grabs about a 25 millimeter set bolt that's about this long, 20 inches, and he's swinging it at everybody. Jesus. The guy's just off his rocker. And so anyway, you hear the chatter kind of pick up, and there's 4 or 5 guys, and he gets on the railroad. We got this railroad spur coming into the plant site, and it wasn't even done at the time, if I remember right. But he's on the railroad, and there's this parade following him down the railroad, and we jump in the truck and go running back up there. I got Igor with me, my translator, and I said, Igor, tell him to put down the stuff. And by this time, he's got a piece of rebar and a set bolt. He's just swinging it at everybody. We get close, and he's swinging it and just gone. And so we get up there and close to him with the truck, and he, I haven't put down the stuff, all this stuff, and he won't do it. So anyway, he'd actually lunge at the truck and things like that, and then we'd do wider loops, and he's just gone. He gets back on the railroad track and keeps going. He goes down the end of the railroad track, and there's a haul road there with we had some 35, 40 ton trucks running up and down the haul road. He walks into the middle of the haul road, and he's swinging at these trucks that are coming by, vroom, like that. Like the third truck stops, and it's like, what are you doing? What's going on? And again, he's kind of gone, and he goes to get into the cab, and by this time there's like 8 or 9 of us, and we all are like converging on him, and we're trying to grab his legs so he doesn't get in the cab. And I remember my buddy Ron and some other guys, they're trying to get up on the cab to push him out, and we're pulling from the bottom, and he goes to get into this truck. And he actually got in the truck. And I remember, I don't know how he did it, but the truck rolled about 20 feet, and we're all yelling, we got to get him out of that cab. We got to get him out. He's going to kill somebody. So anyway, pulling, pushing, on and on. We get Ivan down on the ground, and the Russian safety guy, he's so excited. He just reaches back and just starts kicking him as hard as he can, and he's on the ground. We get him hogtied backwards, with his hands behind his back and feet behind his back, and so he can't move, and he's still going off. And we get him loaded into the truck, and it's just crazy, crazy blood all over and stuff, and get him out of there. The funniest part of that story is the next day I walk into work, and I come around towards my office, and there's Ivan standing there, and he's scabs and blood and bandages and all this stuff. And my first impression was to run. I thought, I need to run. And I looked at him, but he was normal. And he told me that at lunch when he went up there, and this is a whole nother story, but we had prison labor at the time back then. It was part of the society. They put these prisoners on there. And he said he had a stomach ache. So one of the prisoners had given him something for his stomach ache, which ended up being a narcotic, and he went off his rocker. and he wanted his job back. But needless to say, he didn't get his job back. But anyway, that's my story of Ivan.
Wow. I'm trying to visualize it in my head, just thinking through what that must have been like, and it that's a wild story, Keith. That's a wild story.
Yeah.
I think I would like to get a couple of cocktails in you, and then let the story completely unfold, because that's wild.
Anyway, your story happened in my early years. Again, most of my good stories come from that time period in my life. Another thing, for young folks, I mean, it's not, everybody wants the management positions, all this stuff. I want to start as a manager. No, you don't. You want to start working your way through it. It was all the fun times were, to me, the best times were working my way through all that, starting as a young engineer, getting these experiences, working with people, getting to know people, the whole deal of working through a career, to get to the upper positions is what I enjoyed,
Yep.
So anyway,
you want to build your house on a very sturdy foundation. If you find yourself at the top and you don't have that foundation, it's a house of cards. So I totally agree. You want to roll up your sleeves and get into it, put your boots on, roll up your sleeves and kick the tires, because that's where you learn. That's where you really, really learn, and that becomes the foundation of your experience. So I totally agree with you. Well, look, Keith, I really appreciate you you taking the time to chat with us today. I think your stories are great, and I think that a lot of people will really benefit from those stories and from your experience. So, where's the best place for people to find you if they want to learn more about Newfields, or just engage with you and network with you? Where's the best place for people to find you?
well, we definitely have newfields.com to have a look at the company, and then I'm based here in Lone Tree, Colorado. Pretty easy to find, and yeah, give me a shout if you want to know more about Newfields and what we do. So I appreciate that, Jason, as a plug there. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And appreciate you taking the time. I know there's more work than we can handle, so I know you're a busy man. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Well, I guess one more plug on Newfields too. I mean, the group that I'm in charge of is called Mining Design and Technical Services. We have about 85 permanent employees based between Denver, Reno, Elko, and a satellite office in Hermosillo, Mexico. We have a sister group called Mining Energy, Newfields Mining Energy Services. They do more of the environmental side. They're based out of Helena and Missoula primarily, with some satellite offices in Boise, a few other places. But anyway, they also have about 50 people dedicated to the mining industry. And between the two groups and what we can do in construction management, we can take on our part of the world. We're not the catch-all, do-all, but if it makes sense, we can certainly add value. So that's what we have to say, Jason.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. And I'll absolutely endorse those claims. If Keith says he can do it, he can do it. If he can't, he'll tell you.
Yeah, we strive for that. That's for sure.
For sure. Excellent, Keith. Well, thank you for the time. And